Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Genesis chapter 29 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We're breaking down the exact text of this specific chapter to uncover what is, quite honestly, a genuinely dramatic and emotionally charged story. We're talking about intense, at-first-sight love, years of grueling, back-breaking labor, and the ultimate stinging irony of a master deceiver finally being deceived himself. If you want to really understand the raw, completely unpolished reality of the biblical patriarchs and matriarchs, this is absolutely the chapter that puts human frailty, family dysfunction, and divine providence on full display. We're going to take our time, look closely at the words, and really step into the shoes of these characters. Okay, let's map out our chronological journey through the chapter, so you know exactly where we're headed. We'll start with Jacob arriving in the east, then look at his famous 7 years of labor for Rachel. From there, we hit Laban's nighttime deception, how Jacob ends up marrying Rachel too, the heartbreaking story behind Leah's 4 sons, and finally, we'll wrap up with some practical lessons we can take away from all of this. As always, we are focusing on the simple, straightforward meaning of the text, what we call the pashhat, without getting lost in complicated mystical interpretations. We're just looking at what the text actually says. Section 1. Jacob arrives in the east. So to really set the scene and understand Jacob's mindset right now, we have to look at the immediate context of how he got here. We are jumping in right as Jacob finally reaches his destination after a massive, exhausting journey. But remember, Jacob isn't on a vacation. He's a fugitive. He's on the run. Back in Genesis chapter 27, he completely deceived his elderly, blind father Isaac, pretending to be his older brother Esau so he could steal the firstborn blessing. Esau was furious, literally threatening to kill him, which forced Jacob to flee for his life with basically just the clothes on his back. Now, as chapter 29 opens, he's finally crossed this vast, dangerous distance. He has arrived in the land of the eastern peoples, specifically looking for a place called Paddan Aram, desperately hoping to find the family of his uncle Laban. Think about how he must be feeling here. He's completely alone, he's empty-handed, he's exhausted, and he's carrying this massive, heavy weight of his past actions. He's starting over from absolute zero. As he wanders into this new territory, the text tells us he spots a well out in a field. He sees 3 separate flocks of sheep just lying near it. Now, you have to understand, in the ancient Near East, a well isn't just a hole in the ground for water. It's the ultimate gathering place. It's the town square, the water cooler, the center of all local life and commerce. But there's a very specific detail here in the text that's absolutely crucial. A massive stone covers the mouth of the well. And the text goes out of its way to explicitly state that this stone was so huge and heavy that it required all the local shepherds to gather together, combine their physical strength, and roll it away just to water their sheep. So this isn't just a heavy rock, it's a massive physical obstacle. It functions essentially as a communal lock on the most precious resource in the desert. It ensures the water is protected from evaporating in the sun, keeps dirt out, and makes sure the water is rationed fairly only when everyone is present. It's a brilliant ancient system, but it means no single person can get to the water alone. Now, what's really fascinating about the moment that follows is the sudden explosion of pure adrenaline. Jacob walks up and strikes up a conversation with these shepherds waiting by the well. He casually asks them, "My brothers, where are you from?" They reply, "We're from Haran." Boom! Jacob knows he's in the right place. He immediately asks if they know Laban, his uncle. They say, "Yes, we know him. And look, here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep right now." When Jacob looks up and sees Rachel, his own flesh and blood cousin, and sees the sheep belonging to his uncle Laban, something totally incredible happens. He walks right up to that massive, unmovable stone, the exact same stone that usually requires a whole team of rugged, grown men to move, and he single-handedly rolls it away from the mouth of the well to water his uncle's sheep. It is a massive feat of physical strength. It's likely fueled by this intense rush of adrenaline after finally reaching his destination. Then, the text says he walks over, kisses Rachel, and just begins to weep aloud. Why is he weeping? Well, imagine the sheer, overwhelming relief. After running for his life, sleeping in the dirt with a rock for a pillow, and leaving absolutely everything he knew behind in Canaan, he has finally found his family. He's safe. He reveals to Rachel that he is her father's relative, Rebekah's son. Rachel immediately turns and runs to tell Laban, who hurries out, throws his arms around Jacob, kisses him, and brings him into his home. Finally, Jacob has a roof over his head. Section 2, 7 years for Rachel. So Jacob settles in. He stays with Laban for a whole month, working alongside him and fully integrating into the daily rhythm of the household. And this brings us right to the famous negotiation for his wages. After a month of free labor, Laban says to Jacob, "Look, just because you are a relative of mine, should you really work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." And right here, before Jacob even answers, the biblical text hits pause to formally introduce us to Laban's two daughters, and it draws a very direct, stark contrast between them. The older daughter is named Leah, and the text tells us she had weak or delicate eyes. Now, in the original Hebrew, this could mean her eyes literally lacked brightness, or perhaps they were physically sensitive to light, or maybe it just meant she had a softer, less striking appearance. But it's clearly deliberately meant as a contrast to her sister. Rachel, the younger sister, is described unequivocally as being lovely in form and beautiful. The text isn't trying to be cruel to Leah here. It's simply setting up the very real, very simple reality of Jacob's perspective. He is completely, visually, and emotionally captivated by Rachel. He only has eyes for the younger sister. Jacob is just completely smitten. Now, under normal circumstances in this ancient culture, a prospective groom would pay a bride price, called a mohar in Hebrew, directly to the father of the bride. This would usually be a hefty sum of silver or a large number of livestock to prove he could provide for her. But remember Jacob's context. He's a refugee. He literally has absolutely nothing but the clothes on his back and his bare hands. So he makes this incredible, desperate offer to Laban. "I will work for you for 7 full years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." Think about how massive that commitment is. 7 years of manual labor. Laban quickly agrees, saying, "Well, it's better that I give her to you than to some stranger. Stay here with me." So Jacob begins his labor. And right here, the text provides what is honestly one of the most beautiful, deeply romantic lines in all of the Hebrew Bible. It says he served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Just pause and think about that. Think about the blazing desert heat, the freezing nights, the relentless, grueling nature of shepherding a massive flock for 7 full years. Yet his total devotion and love for this woman made the time absolutely fly by. It's a powerful statement about human endurance fueled by love. Section 3. Laban's Nighttime Deception. But as you might expect, in a family known for trickery, after those 7 years of faithful, hard labor are finally completed, the story takes a sudden, incredibly dark, and highly ironic turn. Jacob goes to Laban and says, "My time is completed. Give me my wife so I can sleep with her." So Laban gathers all the people of the place and throws this massive, joyous wedding feast. But then, under the heavy cover of darkness, Laban pulls off the ultimate bait and switch. He takes his older daughter, Leah, and gives her to Jacob instead of Rachel. He also gives his own servant girl, a woman named Zilpah, to Leah to be her maidservant. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how on earth did Jacob not know who he was marrying? Well, you have to factor in the ancient context. Between the pitch-black darkness of the desert tent, the very heavy, opaque bridal veils that were customary for a bride to wear, and, let's be honest, probably a significant amount of wine from the wedding feast, Jacob is completely and utterly fooled. He sleeps with her, fully believing it is the woman he has loved and worked for over the last 7 years. Then, the sun rises, the light hits the tent, and the text just bluntly, almost brutally says, "When morning came, there was Leah." Just imagine the absolute shock, the utter confusion, and the deep, stinging betrayal Jacob must have felt in that exact split second. The rug has been completely pulled out from under him. He wakes up to a harsh, devastating reality. As you can imagine, Jacob furiously confronts his uncle. He is absolutely livid. He storms up to Laban and demands, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" He has worked his fingers to the bone for almost a decade, only to be totally played. This explosive confrontation forces us to ask, how could Laban possibly justify doing this to his own nephew? How do you explain away stealing 7 years of someone's life? Let's look exactly at Laban's response, because it is incredibly cold, calculated, and brilliant in a twisted way. Laban doesn't apologize. He doesn't beg for forgiveness. He leans entirely on local tradition to brush it off. He simply looks at Jacob and says, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one." Now, on the surface, this is just a cultural excuse, but if you look deeper, this is a breathtaking moment of literary irony. Laban completely traps Jacob in a cultural technicality, but listens so closely to the subtext of Laban's excuse. Jacob is the younger brother, who pretended to be the older brother to steal a blessing in the dark from his blind father. Now, Laban swaps the younger sister for the older sister in the dark, using the exact argument of birth order against him. The deceiver, who used darkness and blindness to his advantage, has now been utterly deceived in the dark himself. Laban uses Jacob's own messy history against him without even having to say it directly to his face. It is absolute poetic justice playing out in real time. Section 4. Jacob marries Rachel too. So, Jacob is caught in a terrible, impossible bind. He's legally married to Leah now. The consummation happened. But he's forced to strike a brand new deal if he ever wants to get the woman he originally worked for. Laban, always the shrewd businessman, immediately offers a solution. He says, look, just finish this daughter's bridal week, celebrate for the full 7 days, then we will give you the younger one also, but it's going to cost you. You'll get her in return for another 7 years of work. Jacob, completely trapped by his intense love for Rachel, really has no choice. He agrees. He fulfills the 7 days of wedding celebrations for Leah, which must have been the most awkward, painful week of his life. As soon as that week is up, Laban gives him Rachel to be his wife as well, along with a servant girl named Bilhah. But look at the steep cost of this arrangement. Jacob commits to yet another 7 grueling years of labor. He is now indentured to Laban for a total of 14 years. A massive chunk of his prime adult life gone just to secure the family he wanted. So the crucial, unavoidable point is established right here in the text in verse 30. It states it plainly and directly. Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. There is absolutely no sugarcoating this reality. Jacob's blatant, obvious favoritism toward Rachel creates a deeply painful, uneven, and frankly toxic dynamic within the household. Leah is legally a wife, yes, but she is essentially an unloved wife. Rachel has the love of her husband, but as we are about to see in the upcoming chapters, she's going to have her own deep struggles with infertility. This exact moment sets the stage for an intense, lifelong, bitter rivalry between two sisters who are now married to the exact same man under the exact same roof. It's a recipe for absolute disaster. Section 5. Leah's 4 sons. And this uneven, painful dynamic leads directly into the final act of this chapter. The narrative suddenly shifts its focus entirely away from Jacob and Rachel, and it zeroes in completely on the unloved sister, Leah. The text tells us that when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb while Rachel remained barren. Now, I absolutely love decoding the names of these children because they aren't just random words. They show exactly how Leah's 4 sons directly reflect her desperate, heartbreaking hope that bearing children will finally, somehow, win Jacob's affection. You can literally hear her crying out through the names of her boys. Let's look at them. Her first son is named Reuben. In Hebrew, this sounds like Ra'ah ben, meaning he has seen my misery, or see, a son. Her given reason is agonizing to read. It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now. She thinks this boy is the ticket to Jacob's heart. Then comes her second son, Simeon or Shimon. This is derived from the Hebrew word shama, which means to hear. She names him and says, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too. She still feels completely unloved. Her third son is named Levi, which sounds like the Hebrew root word for being attached or joined. She says, now at last my husband will become attached to me because I've borne him 3 sons. It's 3 strikes. She's pleading for connection. But then look at the incredible shift with her 4th son, Judah or Yehuda. The name sounds like the Hebrew word yada, which means to praise or give thanks. When he's born, she simply says, this time I will praise the Lord. Do you see the change? She stops striving. She stops aiming her hopes at Jacob's elusive attention in the naming, and she finally turns her eyes upward in gratitude. Then the text notes, she stopped having children for a time. It's a profound, emotional arc captured entirely in a genealogy. Section 6. Lessons from Genesis 29. Well, we've covered all the main events of this chapter, step by step. Now let's zoom out for a minute and look at the practical takeaways. This ancient text really holds up a mirror to our own human nature. First and foremost, we see very clearly that actions have consequences. The biblical text is deeply, unflinchingly realistic. Jacob exploited his father's literal blindness to take the blessing of the firstborn. And right here, Laban exploits the literal darkness of the night to give Jacob his firstborn daughter. It's the ancient rule, what goes around comes around. You cannot outrun the seeds you plant. Second, we definitely see the incredible power of devotion. That simple line stating that 7 years of grueling labor felt like just a few days to Jacob is an incredible testament to the endurance of true love. It really highlights the profound human capacity for commitment when the motivation is pure. But third, and perhaps most importantly for us today, this chapter highlights deep human frailty. The text does not hide the immense pain of family dysfunction. It doesn't paint these patriarchs and matriarchs as perfect, flawless, untouchable statues. They are messy. They make mistakes. It shows Leah's raw, unfiltered agony at feeling unloved and overshadowed by her sister, literally recording her deeply personal pain right into the names of the men who will become the foundational tribes of Israel. It's real life. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up. Considering the fractured, deeply complicated way these first tribal patriarchs were born, into a household completely divided by a father's unequal love, a father-in-law's bitter deception, and an intense brewing rivalry between two sisters. How in the world will this intense dynamic shape the future of the nation of Israel? The seeds of massive future conflicts between brothers and tribes are planted right here in the dirt of Genesis 29. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.